Welcome back, piggies, to another episode of the Pigskin Pals podcast with your hosts, Dayne and AJ. Today, we've got the Week 15 matchup preview going on. Going to be going over all of this week's matchups and touching on some players that you want in all these matchups for your first week of the playoffs if you made it there.
But if they're listening to us, they're probably all on bye, so...
Well, you might, if you listen to us, you might be on bye in the toilet bowl, because in our two leagues, I did not make the playoffs, and I have a bye in both of them. So that's the type of bye I'm looking for. Without further ado, let's get stuck right
into it.
Another good Thursday night game, I think, to start us off. A little bit better last week than they did the week before. Better weather game. Brought them back, I think. They weren't just in a blizzard. And the Rams offense is just insane. So
that was also a really fun game.
That game was nuts. Absolutely crazy. Hopefully this is a little repeat of that Rams-Bills game. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if it's a high-scoring game.
The only thing I'm worried about right now, yes, it looks like it's going to be a close game with the spread being at 3 favoring the Niners, which was kind of a surprise to me, honestly. Maybe it's just that the home field advantage that they have. And then, yeah, pretty high scoring game with 49.5 from Vegas. So I also kind of agree that it's going to be a high scoring game. The only thing that's worrying me is Niners and their continual injuries at running back that keep popping up. So Grando has a foot sprain. I don't know if you saw, but hasn't been practicing Monday and Tuesday so far. Not sure if he will practice, or if he did practice today on Wednesday and will do on Thursday. So I'm kind of leaning towards it's probably going to be Patrick Taylor and all the other guys that they're signing. I think like Israel and
dude, Izzy. I hope Izzy Abanikanda gets a chance. He's really fun to watch. He's just like so explosive. So I hope he gets a chance. And also it seems like any running back that gets to run with the 49ers just ends up having a good time. So
minus Trey Sermon.
Well, that'll happen. Can't hit on all of them. But I think, you just play most of the people you got in this, right?
I'm seeing a lot of questions on what you do with Debo. Do you play him? Like, this is a playoff week. Are you playing Debo against this? My thought process, I have him in a league. I'm going to start him. I mean, I don't really have any other options anyways. I could play T. Higgins over him. Also not really a good option. But this is a game where I think they would really need him and rely on him. When we had the first news of CMC going down earlier in the season, I was like, okay, nice. They're probably going to give Debo a little bit more rushing work, which they did in like the first couple of weeks. I'm kind of thinking it's going to be more like that.
I could see
hopefully. That. But I'm also a hopeful person for Debo as an owner. So
yeah, that makes sense. I think if you have Debo, it's going to be hard not to play him, and you probably are going to be struggling for starts anyway. And I feel like he's still got that high upside. He could at any point rip a big play. I agree that I think he may get worked a little bit more into the running game. Like, yeah, I get it. They've had a lot of guys that they could play at running back, but they're on like their 6th running back. I know it's an exaggeration. They're going to get him more involved, I would bet, at the run game. So I think you might have a little bit of a floor there too.
Yeah, and then it looks like a great matchup for the running backs on the Rams also. Tyron looks great. Yeah, continue playing Juwan. Also, I'm confident in him.
Yeah,
Kittle looks like the actual focal point in the offense now too.
100%.
So worries about him either. And then second game, we got Washington against New Orleans in New Orleans. So I'm surprised the spread isn't bigger at 7.5 with the injury to Carr. I don't know who they're going to be throwing out.
Hayner, I think.
What?
As of now.
But a pretty low over-under. I think it's going to be a pretty big domination by Washington, and partly due to Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. As you can see, that the Saints are allowing a shit ton of points to wide receivers.
Yeah, I agree. And on the Saints side, I mean, you're going to play Kamara, but like he's been having a bunch of down weeks in a row in terms of like just no touchdowns, not really huge yardage numbers. I wouldn't be surprised if this is another down game, especially since the last 2 matches he's had were really good and he still struggled. Kind of seems like they're getting Kendra involved a little bit more.
That's what I was going to add too, because he's been getting a lot more work than what he's seen in like his whole career, which it's not a lot, but it's a huge jump from what we have seen previously. So that's something to monitor. Also, maybe they're just almost giving up in the year and seeing what they actually have in that running back.
Wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, because they're not playing for anything, and they got Alvin for a couple more years. There's no need to overwork him right now in a situation where you don't need to.
And I don't believe Olave is back yet, or any of the Saints wide receivers. So
yeah, even if Olave was back, I'm not playing him, right? Like, no, I'm not playing any receiver here.
Revenge game alert. Marshawn Lattimore is going to be
okay. I was like, who we got this time? Yeah, I don't see them having much success on offense.
I think the Washington defense would be a good way to start off your playoffs.
Cincinnati and Tennessee. I mean, this Cincinnati team is a team you can score on. Their defense is not particularly good, but it is the Tennessee Titans. I think I would bet more on Tony Pollard than any of the... I learned my lesson. Don't bet on Will Levis and the passing game. If they can, they're going to run, and I think that's what they'll do.
I agree also. It's interesting that just doing these previews, I've noticed like a swing in Cincinnati. They were a team that you could run on. Then they were a team that you couldn't really run on. Now they're back to being a pretty bad team against the run, allowing 27.8 points per game in the last 4 weeks. So yeah, I'm excited for Pollard. Not really looking forward to anyone, like you said, on the Titans receiving game. And even if it is like a long shot, I would have to be so desperate because that's not someone I would want to be trusting in the playoffs. No, necessarily.
I mean, Jamar Chase is matchup proof. Like, this guy is insane. T. Higgins is a little bit more suspect. They are good against the pass, or decent, I guess. Tennessee is, and it's really been the Jamar Chase show.
The Chase show in general.
Yeah.
Chase Brown, dude.
That's true. Chase Brown has been very solid as well. So those two guys I'm very comfortable playing. Other than that, I'm not, like, making sure I get T. Higgins in my lineup, but he's still a valid play, I'd say. Moving on.
The next game we have, I think, is going to be a sneaky, really good game for fantasy purposes. We have Miami going to Houston. Another close game, 3.5-point spread. You and I both took Houston, and even though Miami has been playing better, a middling total at 46.5, and then it's two defenses with two very different strengths and weaknesses. So Miami allowing the 19th most points to running backs, less to wide receivers, and then Houston, who's been allowing the 29th most to wide receivers, a ton, and some of the least to running backs, which will be interesting to see what happens with Chin in that, because he doesn't really necessarily play that running back role. It is that wide receiver hybrid.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, even though the matchup looks bad for HN, a lot of his work comes from screen passes and receiving work anyway. I wouldn't be too worried about HN. Like, obviously you're gonna play him anyway. It's not like you were going to sit him, but would not be too worried about his output, at least through the air. And, I mean, Tyreek Hill's had great past 2 weeks. I wouldn't expect that to change here.
What about Waddle? The two question marks, I think, the biggest one is Waddle and CJ Stroud. Do you trust them in your playoffs?
I don't know if I really trust CJ Stroud. You haven't really been able to trust him much this year, I feel like. I don't know if this is the game that I choose to, because I think they have been all year, they probably lean on Mixon a little bit, because I think they might want to slow this game down, because obviously Miami is a team that can pull off some explosive plays with their speed, and just holding the ball as much as they can, I think will be something that is beneficial for Houston. So I think they'll run the ball and try to control the clock. So I wouldn't personally bet on CJ Stroud.
Yeah, it's like he's been averaging like 10, 14 points kind of the past couple of weeks, but it's just like you probably drafted him high. You've probably been stuck with him. Maybe you didn't make the playoffs because of that. If you are in this case, someone I would maybe rather start is like Stafford in the Thursday night game over him. He's someone on our waivers that I would kind of look to. No one else really stands. Like Kirk Cousins, no, thank you. Drake, I mean, like, no, thank you.
God, it's so tough because I think, from what I recall, Kirk's matchup isn't all that bad, but I can't trust him right now.
No, yeah, it's against the Raiders, which is a pretty juicy one. But it's just like, you know, he's going to be throwing picks probably.
He's got 3 picks at least, and maybe a touchdown in his bag.
Yeah.
Kansas City and Cleveland. This is going to be a gross game, I think. Every game that Kansas City has played has been fairly low scoring and gross. Cleveland's been a little bit more explosive, though.
And they have the opportunity to be explosive again. It hasn't really been explosiveness through the ground, but it's been through the air, and you can see that Kansas City's 22nd in allowing points to their wide receivers. So pretty hopeful for Judy again. It looks like Tillman's practicing again. I wouldn't throw him in my lineups again right away, but Elijah Moore and Judy are definitely some dart throws. I mean, Judy's less of a dart throw because we've seen
he's just been out of him. No, I mean, he's been the wide receiver 2 for the past like 5 weeks or some crazy stat like that. Like, he's been insane. No, I saw that.
Feels
I don't
great.
I
know he's the wide receiver 10 right now on the season, insane. But
he's been absolutely nuts. This is like a sneaky upset game, I feel like. In Cleveland's offense has been pretty good. Their defense is obviously pretty stout in general. I could see this being a potential upset game.
I could also, and I think it would be a lot of fun too if Cleveland beats the Chiefs.
Oh, I'm totally in for it. Absolutely.
It would almost just be as if like the Chiefs have their eyes set on next week, which I know they never really do because they are such a well-coached team. But it's just down to Jameis, I think. If he throws those picks, then it will be tough. But if he gets lucky and doesn't throw those picks, then it could be maybe that upset there.
Are you playing Pacheco? Are you happy about playing Pacheco? I'm not, personally. Like, I'm not happy about it. You may have to, but it's not something I'd want to do necessarily. I think like Kelsey and Pacheco are the only 2 I even think about playing.
So no D-Hop for you?
Not really, no. He's not on my radar. I mean, if I don't like Travis Kelsey, you got to play him because you have him. It's not like I'm super thrilled about it.
And something that I touched on last week in our DFS show, Cleveland is still the worst team against tight ends.
There you go.
4 weeks.
Big week coming.
I would love to have Kelsey this week. Didn't work out for Darnell Washington in my DFS lineup, but
that makes sense. I'm not
Pat Freiermuth had a
There you
decent
go.
week.
There you go. Yeah, that's true.
The tight end 1 does pretty good against Cleveland.
There you go. Yeah, the backup tight end. You need the tight end one.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And now,
sick game.
yep, we have the closest matchup. It looks like by the spread. Carolina favored by 2.5 points. I chose Carolina. It feels like it's an upset pick, even though they're favored.
Yeah.
Low over under at 42.5 points. And then some pretty weak defenses. We've been talking smack of the points allowed for Carolina every week. They're like at 8, 10. We're always joking, oh, it's probably from defensive pass interference. They just shut down AJ Brown and Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
I think they might actually be like
They might just be all right. Yeah.
passing and they're like all their games are close where these teams need to start like passing on them, but
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot of points coming from it. So
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think this is a really nice fantasy matchup. Like, you want guys in this game, I think. Like, I think Rico is a smash play. I think Chuba is a smash play. Adam Thielen's a perfectly good play. I think CeeDee's a good play. Like, you want the key guys in this game. I think especially the running backs.
yeah, what I was talking about earlier with the CJ Stroud stream, would you get nasty and play Bryce Young? Oh,
I don't think I could do that. Like, I get it. I get the thought process there. But, like, you can only go so far, right? I'd still take talent over just like really good matchup because we've seen bad quarterbacks go into good matchups. Will Levis just completely shit the bed. So I'd still stick with CJ. I think as like much as I would want to pick one of these two guys, yeah, I think this could be one of the more fun games of the week too, and it could be weirdly high scoring. I just got this feeling. Moving on, we got the Jets and Jacksonville.
is this one going to be weirdly high scoring?
I don't think so. I really don't. These two teams are not.
Yeah, as you can see, there's upside for a lot of high scoring, maybe yardage
Absolutely.
for just fantasy players, maybe not a lot of touchdown scoring because they're not going to be converting a lot of first downs. But you can see both teams super weak against the pass game. Jacksonville, terrible against the run game. And then the Jets are pretty good against the run. Surprisingly, they kind of shifted into a good run defense team.
Yeah. I mean, I think Devontae and Garrett Wilson, like, I'm really happy about playing them this week. They had a great week last week. I think they'll have a pretty good week again. And whichever running back is the running back this week, I think for the Jets will be good. I think the only guy I'm really playing on Jacksonville is Brian Thomas.
Yeah.
Maybe Ingram, but most likely just Brian Thomas.
No, I've seen Ingram. Well, Ingram, I think he just popped up in the injury report.
Oh, of course he did.
But also, ever since Mac Jones has been quarterback, he just really hasn't been getting like many targets or involved.
They just pepper Brian Thomas with targets, which is a smart thing to do when he's your only real player.
That's what I'm saying, though. But it is like a different quarterback. Maybe it's just not an Ingram rest of season.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence is his quarterback again. But it sounds like we're all in on Jets if we want the wide receivers and the running back. Here's what I'm going to say. Aaron Rodgers might be a guy that I stream over CJ Stroud. That's the type of guy I may stream. I know I'm picking that matchup again, and I think they'll run a lot. But if it's not Brees, I think they'll still try and throw the ball a lot. Come on, Rodgers, bring me home that championship or just playoff win in Dynasty. We'll be needing that.
This game is ridiculous.
Yeah. This one is disgusting. We got Baltimore at the Giants. It's surprising that you also picked Baltimore at a 16.5 favorite
it's crazy
spread.
upset pick.
I've never seen 16.5 point favored, let alone being the away team. Also, my parents do like a work thing where they make like picks and everything for each team. Both of them, their leagues was 100% Baltimore, 0% Giants.
Wow.
Never really seen that before either. But it makes sense. The other most surprising thing, maybe the biggest surprise to me, is Baltimore being points allowed to wide receivers at 20 points now in the past 4 weeks when they were 32nd a couple weeks ago, and now they're the worst team to be playing against.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in that stretch, they probably were playing, they had that Bengals game, and I mean, that just absolutely destroyed their average, I think, that one game. So now that they've locked it down a little bit, I'm not totally surprised that they're back down to... One is surprising, but I'm not surprised that they're low.
Yeah, I'm actually going to pull up their recent ones.
Do you think that... Go ahead.
You can go first, and then I'll talk about the recent games that they actually played against.
Okay. Do you think that this is like the Giants being low against receivers has to do with the fact that they're losing all the time and people are running a lot on them, or what do you think? Because like they're third against receiver right now. Do they just have a nice secondary? I don't really know.
I don't think the Giants team is like their defense is that bad. I know they have a lot of talent up front that can actually get after the quarterback. Maybe they're causing some pressure, and then
that's true.
Like,
Dexter Lawrence has been.
They do feel more like a defensive team than offensive, obviously, but also I'm sure that's playing into it where they're just never competitive. Honestly, like thinking about some of their games, they have been like in close games.
They've had a fairly
just lose.
like easy schedule recently. I think easy in terms of like they're not playing big teams like Baltimore. So I think they have stayed in a little bit. That being said, I think Derrick Henry probably will be an absolute smash this week.
Yeah, I just think they're dog shit against running back, or against the run, so people know to target that. But yeah, excited for Derrick Henry this week.
Mm-hmm.
Are you excited for Zay? If you want to go back to that,
I think I may be sitting if I was to have. So I put up a lineup forgetting that I was on bye in the toilet bowl. So I was doing my lineup and I was playing Jacoby Myers over him. I guess I'm not too excited about him. He's slowed down a little bit. He was a little bit streaky in the beginning, but he had those big games. He hasn't had like a true big game in a while. It feels like, at least.
Yeah, last thing on the points per game for the Baltimore wide receivers that they allow, it does look like they are real because like they ran by, but they played Philly, who great wide receiver core. They had the Chargers when Ladd and QJ were both healthy. Pittsburgh against healthy George Pickens, and then Cincinnati.
I mean, yeah, that's 4 good teams.
Pretty surprised about that.
It's not like you're playing too many of the Giants receivers anyway, like only neighbors. So it shouldn't be too much of a big deal, I think. This is a game that I think could actually be kind of fun.
I think so too.
Bo Nix and Denver, they've looked pretty good, especially on off. Like recently, they've looked pretty okay on offensive, at least passing game wise. The running game is still kind of dookie. Indianapolis too, like they got a perfectly fine offense, so I think this could end up being a fairly high scoring game.
I was considering maybe picking the Colts. I'm like, who do I really want to take here? Ultimately, I went with the home team, but I thought it was funny how both of the defenses kind of allow opposite of what the offenses are good at. Like
that's true.
The Colts can run the ball, but it's really tough to run against Denver. And then Denver can not run the ball, but it's really easy to run against the Colts. So I thought that was just kind of funny.
I'm surprised to see Denver so low in the wide receiver. I feel like for a while they were really shutting down. I feel like for a while they were really shutting down passing attacks. Maybe that's changed a little bit. I mean, I'm okay with playing most people in this game. Like, obviously, I don't like playing a running back from Denver. If you need a spot start, I don't hate playing like a Javonte. Who knows? They've had like the hot hand approach, so it's really you got to get lucky. But matchup wise, I mean, technically you should be in business. But like, I'm okay playing Pittman. I'm okay playing obviously A-Rich and JT, Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton, all those guys.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Denver running backs too, because maybe there's a chance one's on waiver wires or at least in DFS. I was like, they're probably going to be pretty cheap, and they are because they split so much, but I just didn't even want to really take the risk at picking the wrong one.
No, because that's all it's going to be. They really like have taken the hot hand approach. It's insane. It was like 3 games ago, Javonte or Estime had 20 carries, and it was Javonte with 20 carries, and this last game it was Jaleel. It's like it's unpredictable. You can't really reliably know what's going to happen. Moving on.
Next game we got is New England playing against the Cardinals. A bigger spread. Back to that. The Cardinals are favored by 6.5 points, total of 46.5. New England team that is pretty soft against wide receivers, and then Arizona is pretty soft against the running backs, but don't remember the last time Stevenson's name has been mentioned really.
I mean, he's so honestly like mediocre is the best way. He's never really truly bad. He doesn't really have many of those pop-off weeks. But what I'll say about the game in general is Arizona's been really disappointing to me a lot of these last weeks. Like, who knows what happened, but I really think New England has a chance to pull off an upset here. Drake May has been pretty good. Arizona's not particularly stout in general on defense, so I think they have a chance to stay in this game, and if they do, I think they have a chance to win.
I didn't notice that you picked the Patriots as your upset, but I think Arizona is just not getting a lot of just press or anything. Like, they're playing pretty good in my opinion. Like, they're always in the close games. They're always in possibility to win. They've been really disappointing for fantasy purposes, I think, where like Kyler hasn't really been doing much or Marvin hasn't. It's really just been Connor and McBride show over there. But for having no one on their team, like, it's been like under 20 points allowed, it feels like, every single week. And I think they just allowed like 17 to the Seahawks again. So I don't know. Yep. I'm pretty confident in the Cardinals, I can see where you're coming from.
I have like I kind of really like the Patriots for some reason. Like, I think they're going to be fairly decent here soon.
We know why.
No, he's out with concussion. That means he was playing. Just keep that in mind.
That or he hit his head on the door or something. I don't know.
He fell off the bench. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You're playing all your good Cardinals.
I know what it was.
Oh God,
he was in practice. It was like Drake May was throwing the ball. He's like, Baker or Javon catches. It just drills him in the head,
face,
through the hands, hit him in the head, concussion.
That would be funny. Tampa Bay and the Chargers. Holy moly. Tampa Bay's defense, fantasy defense, I guess.
They have been allowing 6 to wide receivers, second 2 running backs have switched. Wait, did I just... I'm going to double check and make sure I didn't get these wrong, because it does look like... Yeah, it definitely does.
I'm very surprised.
Bucks are 6 against wide receivers.
There you go.
Second against the running backs. So, yeah, I put it in there. I mean, I'm happy we fact-checked it, because I really wouldn't believe it if someone told me this.
I know.
Because it just felt like last week I was targeting the Bucks as a matchup. Who did they play last week?
The Raiders.
Maybe that.
Jacoby. Well, Jacoby was he was still good, but like Jacoby was a big play, Brock was a big play. That's about it realistically.
Yeah, it doesn't incorporate tight ends. I know like had a good decent week, and Brock did too. So it really didn't affect their wide receiver score, and it was just like Jacoby that did.
Jacoby,
and
and he's the only receiver that does anything ever.
So that 10 points to Jacoby probably really helped with their stats.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm definitely not terrified of playing against the Buccaneers at all. Pretty excited for both the quarterbacks, especially if Ladd is playing again. It really does feel like the Chargers offense like doesn't get as many conversions and stifles with Ladd and JK out. The more weapons that they have in the field is obviously always going to help. Why did you pick the Bucs over Chargers?
I mean, I think the Chargers, with all their injuries, have been a little bit more shaky on offense. And I could see Tampa Bay coming out swinging again. I mean, with Mike Evans back, one of the running backs can play well. Their offense has been good, so I think Tampa Bay can get out to an early lead. And if Ladd is out again, I don't know what his status is looking like. I think that they could struggle. Chargers haven't looked particularly great to me since they lost JK. I feel like their run game hasn't really been able to get going, and I think that's kind of...
Now you're convincing me to almost switch. But next game, another really good game. Surprised it's not closer with the spread. Philly is favored by 5.5 points. We got Steelers going to Philadelphia. A low over-under also. I mean, these are two really good defenses. 42.5. Some new news. Probably Pickens is going to be missing another game, maybe a couple more weeks too, with a grade 2 hamstring. That kind of sucks. And I think it's, if you take Pickens out of that offense, like who's going to be making the plays?
So I was thinking that same thing too. That's what I thought going into last week was who's making plays for this team. Like I thought Pittsburgh was going to lose almost. Like going into the game, I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh loses this game without Pickens because they don't have any like true weapons in the passing attack afterwards. But I think this team is such a well coached team, and it's like the offense is like a machine more than just like one guy is their entire thing. Like Calvin Austin is the guy some weeks. Sometimes Mike Williams makes some catches. Pat Fryer, like they can spread the ball around, and their run game has been so solid that I think as much as like it's obviously nice to have that field stretcher and big playmaker like George Pickens, it's not like they're completely out of it if he's out, just because I think they're well coached and their offense is so versatile.
Yeah, I mean they put up 27 points and they only had 6, 7, 8 catches to their wide receivers last week, which is pretty impressive. So I agree that it is kind of a testament to their coaching. And
I think a lot of it also, their defense makes a lot of plays. When you have a good defense, it's easier for your offense to do well, because if your defense can get off the field quick, then their defense is still tired and gives you a better opportunity to make some plays if they haven't gotten a good rest. So I think honestly, along with that, like turnovers is a big thing for Pittsburgh. They get put in like really good field position a lot of the times. I think a lot of it leans on the defense and the coaching, not necessarily the skill on offense.
And I would be comfortable kind of playing all the players that you normally play. Only concern, like I think this could be a good game for the running backs specifically.
Absolutely.
My only concern is that I think Philly definitely has the better chance of hitting deep with their wide receivers and connecting on that. And if they do that, then what does Pittsburgh do? I
100% agree. Philly gets up quick. That's when the game gets tough, because then they can't run the ball and they can't focus on that. So I could see that being a good take as well.
Woo-wee.
Game of the week, right? Game of the year, maybe? Who knows?
Yeah.
Buffalo and Detroit. I mean, Detroit has good defense or whatever. I don't care. Like this. I'm playing Goff. I'm playing Jameer. I'm playing Allen. I'm playing James Cook. Are we playing anyone yet on passing attack, or are we just still off that? Like I know Shakir had a good week.
I'm playing Shakir for sure. Probably even throwing Amari Cooper in. Hopefully he's going to be more, I could see him having more of a game like Tim Patrick, where he's just like a necessary red zone type of player. Not saying that he's going to get 2 touchdowns, but kind of that player that's going to be helping you convert things. So one thing I was thinking of putting this together was sleepers that I'm already preparing for next year, where I just see like the disrespect on them already this year, and I think it's just going to transfer, and they're probably going to be seen as lesser players going into next year. And the two were Chase Brown and Khalil Shakir, where they just have like some gross names where you just don't really want to play him. But Shakir has been consistently the player that I see and notice actually shining on the Bills. Like he's always making those big plays and breaking those tackles.
I think it's because he's had the most time with Josh Allen. They have the most like chemistry, and they've built up the most trust. Like the other guys are like Keon and Cooper, and it's like he hasn't been with those guys too long, and Shakir's been there for 2 years at this point. So I agree. Is this his second or third year? This is his third year, right?
I think third.
I mean, I agree. I think he's a guy that Josh Allen can trust and can lean on a little bit more. Full agree there. But yeah, play everyone.
Excited to play everyone. Hoping the Bills can win, take down Detroit by 1 spot. I think that would be really cool. But I'm kind of expecting like that Rams Bills game where it's going to be like a crazy shootout. So hopefully we get that.
Fun game for you.
Yeah, we got Green Bay versus Seattle. I unfortunately went with Seattle in this. Traumatic playing
Yeah,
in
that's
Seattle
true. That's true.
against them. And their offense has been looking really good, and their defense has been looking really good recently. Where my biggest concern for the Packers is we had a couple injuries on our defensive end. Week against Detroit, Evan Williams went out with a concussion. Javon Bullard got hurt. Don't know if Jair's is going to be back yet. And if all three of those guys are going to be out, we really saw our defense get hampered when Evan Williams got hurt earlier in the year. So if none of them are there, I'm going to be really concerned, and I could see a big day for the Seattle passing offense and even the running offense. It looks like the Packers are going back to what the Packers know of, just allowing a ton of points to the running backs. So, but I'm not complaining because our defense does feel a lot better.
It does, absolutely. I have just a lot of faith in Green Bay. I don't know what it is. I think it's just because I think their run game is so good, and that they can, for the most part, when they're not playing teams like the Lions, can control the game and the clock. And if their defense, if they don't have these injuries, is fairly healthy, I think they're pretty solid and stout. So if they can get in that game script where they can run the ball and they can just, play their good defense, they're a really hard team to beat, I think. And Jordan Love's looked okay in the past couple games. So if he can limit turnovers, something like that, I really think I think that game against the Lions was like a really good sign for the Packers almost. Compete with any team at this point, I think. And I think Seattle's on a completely lower level than the Lions are. So
I think honestly, if you are playing Love in fantasy, you're kind of hoping for some turnovers. You see it time again where it's like that third and fourth quarter when we're down by 3 touchdowns because he threw a pick six or touchdown. It's just like a Jameis Winston kind of factor.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And the defense is playing softer. He gets a lot of that garbage time points.
Yep.
Those are high scoring weeks, but hopefully that doesn't happen. And what I would be picturing is, again, just a Jacobs workload.
Yep. He's been so good. Is this a Monday night game? No, I don't remember. Okay.
The first Monday night game. We got 2 this week.
Yeah, and they're both lovely, I believe.
They are. This one is the better one. We got Chicago going to Minnesota. At least it is a divisional game. I had a lot of hope for Chicago last week. Was really tempted to play a lot of their players. Happy I didn't.
Yeah.
Because they just got shellacked by a 49ers team that was struggling, and I don't think it's going to get any better this week. Probably they're going to look even worse because they lost their head coach last week. Maybe they had some more motivation. That's all probably gone now.
Yeah.
And
all gone.
Playing against Minnesota, who was just on fire last week also.
I agree. I think this will probably be pretty one-sided, but you never know. The Bears can surprise you and lose a close game sometimes. I mean, I'm obviously... Your Vikings, you play them. Who are you on the Bears? You playing Swift? DJ Moore, Caleb? Any of those guys?
I'm trying to avoid Swift still. Caleb would be an interesting stream.
I don't hate it because I think they may get behind and he's going to be throwing.
Like, would you do Caleb or we'll go back to Bryce Young? Caleb or Kyler against the Patriots?
I think you have to go Kyler, right?
I would.
Yeah.
Also, I think.
I think you have to go Kyler. It's a little safer, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he's an interesting dart throw.
Yeah. Definitely. I think we can move on to the last game of the week. Kind of a crazy weekender here. You never know. This could end up being like a really good game because it's 2 bad teams.
That's what I was thinking too. A lot of interceptions too, maybe.
It could be exciting. Like, it could be a close game with a lot of passing offense, I think.
Do you remember that game last year where Trey Tucker had like 2 touchdowns out of nowhere? And
yeah,
I could picture like being like that kind of where it's just like, what happened? Well, that was the Raiders scored like 50 points in like the first quarter half or something, I think, and that was just no one saw that coming.
Was that against like the Chargers or something like that? Or was that a different game? Yeah. There's that hilarious interception in that game too. But yeah, I mean, I'm okay with receivers in this game, and obviously you're playing Bijan. Like Jacoby, I think is another good play. Drake London, you play. I think Darnell Mooney is fine. I say that, but I also don't want to play Kirk Cousins because I don't like him right now.
I mean, yeah, it's always better to kind of play the wide receivers than the quarterback.
Yeah.
Matchup like this, like the interceptions won't hurt the wide receivers. True. I was kind of considering like Raiders wide receivers, like how do I jam them in my lineup? And it really does only feel like Jacoby.
It's only Jacoby, and at this point, at least in DFS, I'm sure he's a little bit more expensive because he's been so consistently good, and he's the only guy receiver at least that they throw to other than their tight ends.
Possibly a good week for the tight ends. I'm going to look at the tight ends allowed, the Falcons.
This could be a Pitts week almost because Bowers DFS, because I feel like Pitts is probably pretty cheap and Bowers is going to be really expensive, and this could be a Pitts week maybe.
I think you might be onto something there, AJ, because Raiders, they're allowing 17.28 points in the last 4 weeks to tight ends. 29th. Any guess where the Falcons are? Second.
Damn!
They're allowing 7.5 points.
That's pretty good.
Tight ends.
That's
pretty good.
That is
not enough to go around to Bowers and Mayer.
Yeah, I mean Bowers is so good though. Like I'm sure he'll be an outlier. Mayer, no.
He plays more wide receiver than tight end, if we're being honest. So,
dude, I'm excited about do you think Jacoby stays? I don't know what his contract's like. Like right now, do you think Vegas? for the next year or two. Because if they get a quarterback, I'm really excited about those two players, Bowers and Jacoby, going forward.
Yeah, I'm just trying to start brainstorming now. He's under contract again, and I don't think they would really have any reason to trade him. He's kind of like that perfect quarterback-friendly wide receiver, that helper rookie.
And I don't think he really has any reason to leave either. Like, they'll pay him, I'm sure, and he's the number one guy right now.
Yeah. This is the team that actually did pay him. He's probably getting his most money now. But when I was trying to think of quarterbacks in my land there, like the one that really popped out to me was Shedeur. I was like, he could look pretty sick as a Raider, I feel like.
It would be sick. I feel like the whole like Raiders vibe fits Shedeur very well.
Yeah, and being in Vegas too. Like the old school Raiders
like
fits it,
fit,
but then also the new school Raiders is a great fit too.
I think it's like a perfect fit, and I would not be surprised if that's where he ends up. Anything else you want to say about this matchup?
No, cross your fingers if you're playing a new one in that.
Yeah, that's almost like a game I'm most excited for at this point. Like, now that we've talked about it, I'm like, oh shit, this could be a fun passing game. Like, I'm kind of pumped. Yeah, let us know about what we said. If you think we missed any sneaky good play this week in any of the matchups, don't forget to sack that like and subscribe button, like it's Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah,
baby. And thank you for watching. Peace
Deuces.
out.